The film starts and we see a man named Paul reading a book sitting in the theater. Paul used to work in this theater, so while reading this story, he goes to change the reel of the film. Suddenly, don't know what happened and all the lights turn off and it was dark everywhere. When Paul goes out and sees, there was no one outside. Only emergency lights were on and people's clothes were lying. Meanwhile, the security guard comes from outside, but he also gets surprised to see all this. The whole theater, mall, everything was empty, where a while ago was a crowd of people, but now it was completely deserted. Paul and the security guard together start looking for people. Suddenly, Paul's helmet light was also about to turn off. Paul hits his light hard so that it turned on again. When Paul looks at the security guard, he was disappeared. Then, Paul sees that there is a shadow that is following him, and he ran away from there. After this, we see a girl who was looking for her 9-month-old child in the hospital. Then, she looks at the operation theater where a man's surgery was going on, but there was no doctor there. Here too, only doctor's clothes were lying. Suddenly, the light goes and that patient also disappeared. After this, we see another character in the story named Luke. He was a reporter. When he wakes up and sees his wife at home, his wife was nowhere there. Anyway, Luke gets ready for his office like every day, and while reading the newspaper, he came out of his apartment. While reading, he finds out that this newspaper is 1 day old. When he comes out and sees, there were cars everywhere. He also sees a plane crashing a little far. Similarly, 3 days pass, he is trying to drive the car. As he starts sitting in the car, a frightened man comes to him and asks for a flashlight, but Luke did not listen to that man. After a while, a shadow comes and disappears that man. Seeing this, Luke gets scared and gets out of his car. In the meantime, we see a little girl who was looking at Luke. That girl also had a flashlight. Luke now comes close to the truck, and going inside the truck, he gets some flared lights. Luke comes to a bar with all these things. There too, the lights were blinking. Luke quickly goes to the basement of the bar and increases the power of the generator with which the light was fixed. Then he meets a boy there who pointed a gun at Luke and brings him out of the basement. Seeing all this, Luke explains to that boy that, look, if you kill me, then there will be no one here to help you. You will be left alone. Luke asks that boy his name. He says, my name is James. James tells Luke that my dad is the owner of this bar, and my mom has gone to the nearby church to ask for help. Luke says to him, look, you come with me. The light that is working here is with the help of the generator. Once the generator's fuel runs out, the lights here will also turn off, but James refuses to go with him because his mum told him to stay here. He says, look, it's 11 a.m. and it's so dark outside, the sun will not come out for long. Whoever stays in the dark shadow will make that person disappear. But still, James was not ready to go with him. Then the same girl comes here, whom we saw in the hospital, who was looking for her child. She comes here and asks both of them about her child, and she was looking here and there. Luke says to her, look, there is no one here except us. The girl went crazy. She picks up the gun from there and shoots it. When she comes to a little piece, she tells them that she wasn't frank with her husband. She says, I thought my husband have stolen my child and brought it here because often he used to come to this bar. She starts telling about herself now. From here, we are shown the past of that girl. She was a doctor. One day when I was giving my duty in the hospital and went out for a while to smoke, then suddenly all the lights went out. That shadow had come, which one by one began to make everyone disappear, except those who had light, and she was saved because she had the light of the lighter. The next morning, when she came to her house and saw, her child had also disappeared. So the story comes back to the present from here. Luke asks her, how are you still alive? She takes out a lot of lights from her bag here, which used to shine in the dark. She tells them with their help. Then, all three of them hear a man's voice in the bar that was coming from outside, who was shouting for help. Luke takes his light and goes out to see. He finds a man at the bus stand who was no one else but Paul, whom we saw at the beginning of the story in the theater. Luke picks him up and starts bringing him to the bar. But on the way, Luke's light was off and that shadow was also moving towards him. So Luke quickly lit up his flare lights, which stops the shadow there. Inside the bar, James also hears his mum's voice, which he heard, and started going out. But soon, the lady doctor stops her, who was looking for her child. Otherwise, James was also going to be in that shadow's embrace. It meant that the shadow also hallucinate people, means it showed people strange voices and thoughts, as if their loved ones were calling them, and then it made its prey and made them disappear. There, Luke was also bringing Paul to the bar. His flare lights were also off, but somehow he quickly brought Paul to the bar. When Paul comes to his senses, Luke asks about him. He says, "I used to work in a theater and a black shadow attacked me. I don't know what happened next, but when I came to my senses, I somehow reached that bus stand where there was light." He says, "I think there are aliens in our world who have attacked our world, or it may also be that the scientists' experiments have gone wrong, which has opened the door to the other world, and the aliens have come here." There, the lady doctor, who was looking for her child, says there is nothing like that. "I think God is punishing us. This is the result of our sins." Then the bar lights start blinking again. Luke and Paul want to fix the generator quickly. Meanwhile, Paul tells them a story. He says there used to be a lot of people in a colony, but when the government sent a truck to them for food supply, there was no one. The whole city was suddenly deserted. Everyone had disappeared without taking any luggage, and when the research team went there, they found a word written on the wall. The lady doctor says, "What did that word mean?" Paul says it means no one has ever found out. Maybe it was a kind of warning. While telling all this, Paul was also conscious because he was still very injured. Luke and the lady doctor pick him up and put him on the pool table. Luke had gone to get ice for him. Then he remembers some of his past memories here, that when he went to the office, he had seen some videos after his wife's disappearance. Seeing them, he found out that these people have disappeared because of some shadow. He also saw a man's video there who was telling that everyone has to keep a light with them, otherwise the shadow will come and take them away with it. He said that the shadow attracts people towards him. I found out about this when I heard my brother's voice, but he had died 7 years ago, so you all have to be careful, and asks everyone to come to Chicago, and he also gives his number. When Luke was about to note the number, all the lights turn off and this black shadow was behind Luke. Before that shadow would attack Luke, he had removed all the curtains from the window there. Because of this, the light started coming in and that shadow went away from there. The story comes back to the present where Luke was sitting and remembering all these things. He now tells them all about the men he had seen the video of and says, "We all have to go to Chicago." He tells that there are people there who are survivors. "I have also found a truck whose battery is still running, but somehow we have to push it to get it here." Now everyone agrees to this. Luke and the lady doctor go out to get the truck. They left James with the Paul so that he could take care of him. After their departure, James also starts to get strange thoughts in the bar. He sees a crowd of people in the bar. When Paul asks him for water, he regains consciousness. Now, when he goes to get water for Paul, the bar lights start blinking outside. Luke and Lady Doctor were trying to fix the truck. Meanwhile, Luke's foot was injured and that's why they sit there for a while and think of resting. Then they see a little girl in front of them. They both call her close to help her, but when the girl sees a shadow behind them, she gets scared and runs away from there. Luke was trying to stop that girl and runs after her. Because of this, he fell and his light also turns off. That's when the shadow was moving towards Luke. Seeing this, Lady Doctor quickly turned on the truck's light so that Luke's life could be saved. There, James had not yet reached with water to Paul. When he goes to find James, James's glow light was in the bathroom, but he was missing. Paul had now reached the basement looking for him where he sees a tunnel. When he goes inside it, there was a wall in front of him, and that's when the shadow attacks him. Afraid of all this, Paul woke up, which means it was just a dream of Paul. But now in reality, the bar lights go out and the shadow had made Paul disappear. James, who was saved because of his glow light, when he comes and sees Paul, there were his clothes lying and he disappeared. On the other hand, the truck lights of Luke and Lady Doctor were also about to go out. Luke now tries to light a flambeau with the petrol of the truck so that he can get light, but they neither have a matchbox nor a lighter. That's why Lady Doctor brings Luke to the hospital nearby where she used to work before. There they get a match and quickly light the fire which saved their lives. That's when Lady Doctor hears her child crying and she follows the sound and comes out. She sees a swing lying in the middle of the road. When she goes near her, the swing was empty. Actually, that shadow wanted to mislead them, and that's why Lady Doctor also disappears now, because she came in the dark without any light. Seeing this, Luke also gets scared. He somehow comes close to the bar. Here, the lights of the bar also start blinking. Luke comes inside the bar and takes James with him and takes the fuel from the generator, puts it in the truck and leaves. Luke had come a long way from that area with James. He sees that the bonnet of the truck is open. That's why when he stops it at one place and starts fixing it, then James's eyes fall on the church in front. He was thinking that maybe his mom would still be inside. Luke tries to stop James, but he was not ready to listen to him. James feels a shadow inside. That's when Luke fixed the truck and brought it back and asks James to come back, but James doesn't listen to him. That's when the truck lights suddenly turn off, with which Luke also disappeared. Now that shadow was about to attack James. James, who was very scared, sits in the middle of the burning candles in the church, but slowly. All the candles were extinguished. In the morning, we are shown that a candle was still burning. Because of it, James had not disappeared yet. After a while, the same girl comes there who had run away after seeing Luke first. When James was about to leave, the girl stops him and shows her solar light with which she was still alive, so now she asked James to come with her. They both come out and see a horse, they sit on it and are about to leave. James and only this little girl were left of all these people.